Well, I went to school at Western Washington University, and I've always been a basketball player my whole adolescence and high school. And when I went out to Western, I just wasn't really hip on the culture of the basketball team at the time. So I'm like, I got to find another sport to play because I was always athletic, either basketball or softball. And they didn't have either of those kind of teams up at Western that I wanted to be a part of. So I kind of was at a loss. And my roommate was a soccer player, and the soccer club at Western was really good. And there's no way I could have just joined the soccer club because I wasn't a soccer player. So I was looking around, and a few of my high school buddies were going to Western too, and I'm like, hey, what are you guys doing for fun? And they're like, oh, I just saw this rugby team playing on the field down at Arnson Hall, and which is, I don't know, that's probably old. It's probably not even there anymore. And I'm like, yeah, and they're like, yeah, you should come out. So I just came out. I didn't even have a pair of cleats. I went out to the field, and it was so much fun. The first day I played, I was like, oh, I want to do this sport. I have no idea what the rules are. I have no idea even how the game is played, but I want a part of it. So John McCarthy was the coach at the time, and there was a ragtag group of girls that played. And what was really great is the men's team had been together for a while, and they were very supportive of the women's team starting to play. And so they would come and they would assist John with teaching us the game. And so that's how I started. And I played at Western I started in 1977, and then I played until 1980. And then in 1980, a bunch of us graduated from college, and we couldn't play on the Western team anymore. So we're like, now what do we do? So that's when we formed the Puget Sound Breakers.
So at that point, how many were you able to field a full side of women? How did you get the word out that you were starting this team and to get more women involved?
Well, what was happening at the time is, when we played for Western, there was a lot of different teams being formed at the same time, a lot of college teams and a lot of city teams. So then when we graduated and came down, there was about, I don't know, maybe, I'm trying to think I wrote down the list of people. There was probably about 7 or 8 of us. And then some of the gals were either transferring to the University of Washington, so they said, yeah, we'll play. So some of the girls hadn't even graduated from Western, but they came and started playing for the Puget Sound Breakers. And then what happened at the time was the UW kind of combined with us, and so we got a lot of the UW girls because there wasn't a University of Washington rugby team, and so they wanted to play. So we got a bunch of gals from the University of Washington, and then I think Elliott Bay at the time had disbanded, and so we absorbed some of their players too. So when we started playing, we had enough girls to side at least 15, and it grew to be almost 20 to 25 at one point.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How did the club organize itself? I'm kind of skipping a little bit here, but how did that? Obviously, like, did you have a leader? Did you have coaches? Did you do it as a group, or how were you organized?
Donna, her name was Donna Felling at the time, but now she's Donna Muller, and I and Janice Beach Sullivan. So we've all been, married and have changed our names. But the 3 of us were, I would say, and then there's a couple other gals that were involved. But Donna and I, Donna secured, we were still going to school at Western, but we knew that we would be graduating in the fall of 1980. So we had to find a team that we could play for in the fall. So Donna secured a team in Marysville so that the girls from the UW could come and the girls from Bellingham could come, and we could all meet at a location that was easily accessible for both groups. So we played in Marysville and practiced on a field in Marysville. And Jerry Henson, who was a player from Chuckanut Bay, he became we asked him if he would be our coach. And so he coached us for the first year that we got together as the Puget Sound Breakers. And I remember Donna and I at one point sitting around talking about what should our name be. And we're like, well, we want something inclusive. So it can't be Seattle because we're from all over the area. And so we called ourselves the Puget Sound because we wanted people from all over to feel like they were part of the team, not just Seattle. So, and then we saw a logo somewhere about some breakers or something. And so we thought, oh, that'd be kind of a cool logo. Let's make some waves and make that so we'll call ourselves the Puget Sound Breakers. So that's how we became who we were at that time. We played Simon Fraser University up in BC. We went down all the way to Eugene, Oregon, played the Eugene Housewives. There was the Portland Zephyrs. I think the only teams within Seattle at the time might have been, and I can't remember if the Seabirds were before the Mud Hens or vice versa, but there was another team in Seattle called the Seattle Seabirds or the Mud Hens. I can't remember. And so, yeah, we did have to travel a lot if we wanted to play. We would go, we played over in Idaho. We went over to Montana. Yeah, we had to travel almost every weekend. And then they would reciprocate and they would come to Seattle and play with us. And we would play at Green Lake Fields, which are now, I guess they're off limits now. They don't let anybody play rugby or soccer there. And but back in the day, that's where we played. Well, I got pregnant. So I thought, well, this is probably a good time to quit. So it was 1989 that I gave up my rugby cleats and decided to become a mom and focus on that. But I think my interest was waning a little bit before that. For me, I was a pretty intense rugby player, and I just noticed that my interest wasn't as strong as it was, and I thought, if I can't play 100%, I don't want to play, because you'll get hurt if you don't have your whole effort into it. So I just I thought, well, this is a good time to quit. So I quit playing, got pregnant, and then I wasn't involved with the team per se, but I mean, obviously I saw the gals because a lot of them were still people I saw, in a friendship way for years and years after that. But, and I'd go and watch the games and that kind of stuff. And it it was hard to watch because I sort of wanted to play, but knew that, you wanted to focus on being a parent and that kind of stuff. So I think there was quite a bit more players, but I didn't see a growth of teams. What they were doing is, if I can remember this correctly, what they were trying to do was get us to be a part of the Canadian League, because the Canadians seems like they were growing a little bit better and faster than we were down in the States as far as women were concerned. In fact, we went up to Edmonton and played in this, they had a couple of tournaments up in Edmonton. And so that was a really fun traveling experience, going up all the way to Edmonton to play. And they had it seemed like they had a lot of women's teams up there. So I think the talent was getting better. I think we were getting more and more athletes playing. Whereas when we first started, a lot of people weren't necessarily athletic. They were just, gung-ho to try a new sport. But as the time progressed and we became more well-known and we became more successful, I think more and more athletes were joining the team. And then they started doing a rep side, the men have always done a rep side. They've always had the loggers and then the, progressively more to the Eagles, right? I mean, the men's had the Eagles and we all looked up to them. But women really didn't have that when we first started playing. And so there was no real rep side. And then as I, 2 or 3 years before I quit, they started doing a women's rep side. And I played for them a couple of years and then I, quit playing rugby. So I wasn't involved in that. But I think as time progressed, that rep side really became more successful. It got more and more women playing. And I just think, I went to a game the other day and I went, wow, these women are incredible. I mean, I don't remember hitting that hard, or I don't remember tackling that hard. Is that how hard we played? And I don't know, it could be a combination of both. That yes, we did hit that hard, or maybe the women are just bigger and stronger and more athletic than they used to be. But
that's true. It's probably a combination of both, though, right? I mean, there's just so much more access now to even just the strength and conditioning and all of that stuff that, when I first started out in sports too. I mean, obviously that was in the early 90s and things like that, but the workouts they do it just has grown exponentially, and the science behind all of it. And it's also even in these amateur sports is quite technical still. They get very deep into, rather than it being a social, it's not necessarily as much a social club anymore. They're really almost semi-professionals, the way they train.
Right, and we had none of that. Are you kidding me? I mean, we were lucky if we had jerseys. And I remember I was at Western. I was part of I was our representative to the rec council, because we had to go to the rec council because we were not a varsity team, we were a club. And so we had to go to the rec council to get funding, to get any kind of money. And I remember we had at Western, we had enough for two sides. We had a team and a B team, and we didn't have enough jerseys. And so they're like, why don't you just, take your jersey off and hand it? We're like, really? Have you seen what a jersey looks like after a rugby game? It's muddy, it's ripped, it's like, so I remember fighting tooth and nail to get funding so that we could have uniforms, so, and balls. I mean, so that's where we started, where we couldn't even, and Title IX, you kidding? That didn't even exist when we started playing rugby. So, so that was where we started. So it's interesting to see and hear you talk about training and semi-professional, because that's not, that is kind of a foreign concept for us when we started. If you talk to any gal that was on this trip, they will say it was the highlight of their rugby career. Is we went on a European tour, and there was 25 of us, and it was 1987, and we went to London, Paris, Amsterdam, and Cardiff, and we were gone for 2.5 weeks, I think, and we had the most terrific time. It was so much fun, and we were treated like I don't know, superstars. I remember this one of my fonder memories is I was the captain of the team at this time, So I got to have all the accolades, and I got to do all the speeches and all that kind of stuff. I got all, got to stand up. I was actually even interviewed on CNN by the British news. So that was kind of fun too. But when we were in the little town outside of Cardiff, we were playing against these Welsh rugby team. And some of the people that were in this town had never even seen Americans, let alone American women rugby players. So they were like agog when they met us. And then these little boys came up to me and asked me if I would sign their rugby balls, because they were just like, oh, she's so amazing, and it was so cute. And I was like, oh my God, they think we're these all-stars from America. And it was kind of it was like a sort of like a laughing joke, because we weren't that, all-star. But these people certainly thought that we were. And, later that day, we all thought we were pretty special. But it was a really fun trip. And I think if you ask any of the gals that were on that trip, they would agree with me that it was a highlight. Donna and I kind of quit at the same time. So I'm trying to think of who might have taken Kathy Nash. I got all kinds of accolades because I recruited her, and she was a fantastic player and a really good athlete in everything. She's good at everything she does. And so she was an amazing organizer and planner, and she actually helped put together that European tour along with her husband, because her husband is Welsh, and so he knew the ins and outs of traveling through Europe. And so those two helped us create that trip. When Donna and I sort of backed away from the team, Kathy Nash probably took over. And I think Russ even coached us for a year or two when I was still playing. And so some of the other players that I have very fond memories of, and these are people I still keep in contact with. One thing rugby has done for me is created lifelong friends. And most of us married rugby players too. So I married a rugby player, Donna married a rugby player, Janice married a rugby player. So we're all kind of very ensconced in the rugby. But Donna Larry she was an amazing runner. She was more of a track star than a rugby player, but we took full advantage of that because she was our winger. We just threw the ball to Donna, and she would, jettison. And not too many people could catch Donna Larry because she was so fast. And I'm trying to think of Kelly Mitchell, who's still a very, very close friend of mine. She was one of the best hookers in the league. Not too many people could really beat her in a set scrum. So we always knew that we were going to win a set scrum if Kelly was the hooker. I'm trying to think of, there were some gals that were characters that might not have been the best rugby players. Janice Bemis always kept us laughing. She was a good character to have around. Always kept us laughing. Not the best rugby player, but she was really fun to have around. There was Jill Seidel, who was a really intense break, and Jill was, she was tough, and I wouldn't want to play against Jill because she was very aggressive and very good.